Hey everyone, welcome to another Universal News Frontier Explainer. I'm your director, and today, we're diving straight into the deep, turbulent waters of the 2026 Iran war. We're going to unpack a global crisis that's honestly far more complex and a whole lot more dangerous than the daily headlines suggest. We're looking at a world on the absolute brink, an economy held hostage, and a high-stakes military gamble that honestly sounds like it was pulled right out of a sci-fi novel. Let's just get right into it. Imagine this for a second. 20,000. Right now, 20,000 innocent seafarers are trapped. They're stranded on roughly 2,000 vessels in what has basically become a massive maritime graveyard in the Persian Gulf. And the clock is ticking. They are rapidly running out of food, fresh drinking water, and fuel. Meanwhile, because the Strait of Hormuz usually handles over 20% of the world's seaborne oil, Brent crude has completely skyrocketed to a painful $126 a barrel. This isn't just some localized skirmish, guys. This is about the survival of the global economy, and it directly impacts everything from gas prices in your hometown to global food security. With the straits totally paralyzed since those massive February 28th strikes, the entire world is literally holding its breath. And so we really have to ask, can the U.S. military's brand new, highly advanced extraction plan actually save the global economy without accidentally kicking off World War III? Because let me tell you, the margin for error here is exactly zero. Section 1. The Drone Defense Umbrella. To really grasp the surface of this conflict, we need to look at what Washington calls Project Freedom. This was activated in May 2026 as a massive strategic gambit to decouple neutral commercial shipping from the ongoing standoff. Now, if you know your history, you probably remember the 1980s tanker war, right? Back then, massive, resource-heavy, ship-to-ship convoys were the standard. Well, we aren't doing that anymore. CENTCOM is deploying a totally futuristic, multi-layered defensive buffer. It's an environment so secure that they don't actually have to tether a multi-billion-dollar warship to every single slow-moving commercial vessel out there. It's honestly a huge technological leap. Under the sea, you've got knife fish drones using high-tech synthetic aperture sonar, basically mapping out safe corridors through incredibly hazardous Iranian minefields. Up on the surface, guided missile destroyers like the USS Truxtun act as the heavy muscle. And up in the air, autonomous Lucas kamikaze drones are just waiting to neutralize fast boat swarms. And you know what? This active shield actually worked during its first major test. They successfully extracted the U.S.-flagged Alliance Fairfax, even though U.S. helicopters had to take out 6 Iranian attack boats in the process to do it. Section 2. The Hidden Insurance War. Now, here's what I think everyone is missing, and what I really want you to take away from this explainer today. The ultimate weapon deciding the fate of this war, it isn't the drones, or the missiles, or even the destroyers. It's actually the absolute weaponization of maritime insurance. In peacetime, a war risk premium for a tanker sits at about 0.25%. Pretty standard, right? But by May 2026, that number surged to nearly 10%. To put that in perspective, we're talking about slapping up to $1.5 million in raw insurance costs onto a single voyage. What the insurance markets effectively did was transform geopolitical danger into such extreme, unbearable financial costs that they basically created a private economic blockade. Seriously, it is no wonder traffic through the strait plummeted by 95%. So how do you fix a total market failure like that? Well, you have to bring in the heavy machinery of the state. To keep the oil flowing, the U.S. authorized a massive $40 billion reinsurance facility through the International Development Finance Corporation. The U.S. government is essentially converting global geoeconomic risk into a state-backed liability. It's a really fascinating shift from purely military objectives to geoeconomic management. They're privatizing the blockade for Iran, but heavily subsidizing the risk for everyone else. But wait, because right under this high-tech umbrella, a parallel shadow economy is absolutely thriving. You've got Iranian dark fleet vessels, like the sanctioned Nuvgas, operating right alongside neutral shipping. And they're using fake flags, fraudulent identities, and ghost tracking to totally bypass the blockade. This is actually terrifying because it creates a massive risk of misidentification for U.S. destroyers enforcing the zone. Plus, ship owners are caught in a total nightmare. If they pay the Iranian transit tolls, they get hit with U.S. sanctions. If they don't, well, they risk getting attacked by the IRGC. Section 3. A fractured global response. So why does this matter to the broader international order? Simply put, the immense pressure of this choke point has completely fractured traditional alliances, leading to total diplomatic stagnation and a deeply divided world. you can see a huge split happening. On one side, Washington is pushing its 9-point plan and the Maritime Freedom Construct, which is an exclusionary coalition that actively leaves out China and Russia while enforcing the blockade. But on the other side, European allies, led by France's Emmanuel Macron and the UK, are backing the separate Northwood coalition. They're flat out refusing to join the US blockade and are focusing instead on post-ceasefire clearing. This leaves middle powers like South Korea caught in a massive strategic dilemma, literally forced to choose between the US security guarantee and their own economic survival. The so-called freedom of the seas is suddenly very, very conditional. Section 4. The ticking economic clock. We are now entering an incredibly precarious standoff. The high-tech umbrella is deployed, the insurance backstops are in place, but the clock is ticking loudly on an economic time bomb that could detonate at literally any moment. Right now, we are tracking 3 immediate catastrophic flashpoints. First, the convoy trap. If a guided merchant ship gets struck by an Iranian missile, the US might be forced into a full-scale bombing campaign. Second, the Tehran toll. A naval war could absolutely erupt if Iran systematically seizes ships over unpaid transit fees. And third, and what I think is actually the most surprising and dangerous risk, is the production tipping point. Iran's oil storage is reportedly reaching its maximum capacity. If they are forced to shut in their wells, which would permanently damage their infrastructure, Tehran might just lash out in a desperate final attempt to sink the entire global economy by totally closing the strait. So, Project Freedom might be a high-tech marvel of modern naval warfare, but make no mistake, the global economy is still being held hostage. 12 hours at a time, every single time a ship makes that transit. The risk is just astronomical. So I really want to hear your interpretation of all this. Is this high-tech American umbrella actually going to withstand the storm of the 2026 Iran war, or are we just delaying the inevitable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read all of them. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely stay tuned to Universal News Frontier for our next deep dive.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.